Hello, beautiful souls. I am back in the show today with one of my closest friends, a dear friend, Alex.
So easy for us to be one thing because we have the same name.
I know, it is so easy. And today we're going to talk about forgiveness or the process of letting go. And the reason I saved this topic to have with my brother here, Alex, is that he has, as a devoted student of the Course in Miracles, he has in a way develop a great process to help our brothers and sisters in this process of forgiveness, or what we're going to be calling letting go, releasing. Release. So I have him here today sharing with us this process. So welcome.
And
Alex.
a practice. Thank you. It's exciting. This is a monster topic to take on.
Yes, it is.
So I'm excited to do it because of what it's like brought for me. It's just absolutely like 100% changed my life. Basically woke me up, made me not the Walking Dead, gave me life, put me in touch with most every moment. Right? I rarely fall into any other space other than happiness and peace, and I worked my whole life to try to achieve that by reaching outside of myself.
Yeah.
And so it's just incredibly exciting to be able to, and this is what I do now. This is like I share with people. I like to say a practice, like developing a practice of letting go, release, forgiveness. They're all the same thing. In Course in Miracles, they use the word forgiveness a lot, but it's so loaded for people that I prefer letting go, because if you ask people, would you like to let go of things, right? All the stuff that you're carrying forward, they're like, yeah, I'd like that. If you ask the average person, are you ready to forgive everything? They're like, no, I don't think I want to do that. They are the same thing, but you come upon them potentially in different ways. But there is a process, and like you said, everything here is from the Course in Miracles, distilled quite a bit, from the 1,500 pages and the 365 days of lessons. What I like to spend my time doing is helping people with the Course. Anybody who wants to do the Course, and if you're out there and you want to do the Course, and you want somebody just to be a guide of some sort, right? I give out my phone number. It's 303-718-7048. And you can text me, and then sometimes we do a Zoom call or something, and it's the most rewarding work that I've ever gotten a chance to do.
I love it. You have devoted to help others, and the beauty is, like the Course teaches, the more you teach, the more you learn.
You learn all the time.
You learn all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so sometimes with people, it's good to get a sense of who somebody is and what their history is. My history of being a, I guess, egoic self, and when I use ego, I'm not using Freudian ego, I'm using the sort of Hindu idea of body-mind. That which believes it's just a body, right? Yeah. Mind dedicated to this idea that you're physical, that you're separated, that you're alone. So I was a creative person, raised by two creative people, and I got into a creative industry, advertising, and I did quite well at that by financial, if you use that measure. And we grew an agency from 16 people to 1,000 people and sold it, and I was retired in my late 40s, which was... It was interesting because I didn't actually retire. That hole wasn't filled. The hole that I was on the cover of Fast Company. I was, creative director of the decade. Things like this. A lot of accolades, which advertising likes to do. It's like Hollywood. Yeah. Tons of awards, money, fame, those sorts of things. And, the hole that was inside, I had a really good sense of my happiness, because as a young man I started measuring it, and because it had moved at one point when I was 14. I noticed it moved and it went a little higher, and it's not important to the story, but it went from a 6.5, what I called, used a 1 through 10, went from a 6.5 to a 7. And then I think, I was 14. I spent the entirety of my adult life trying to move it, reading everything. This is very much the Western way. If I could just understand the universe, it will lock in and I'll be happy. It's an intellectual pursuit of something outside yourself. And I had an experience later in life with my best friend from the time we were 12, who we did a lot of bike riding together, and we were doing this sort of extreme sport, downhill mountain biking, and he had an accident. He broke his neck at C1, C2, and he passed away in my arms. And it was a really, it was a painful experience, and it was one that I could not move past. My mom died, my brother, I call him my brother died, and I had my own accident. And these things were one knot that I couldn't unravel. I didn't seem to have the tools. About 2 years of PTSD and things like that, right? I don't subscribe to those diagnoses, but it would match that. I ran into a friend, introduced me to the idea of plant-based journeys. I did one, did 2 days.
Which, by the way, there's an entire story about your experience that in one of our episodes.
Yeah, there's another episode with that. And so that, like you said, if you're lucky, you touch the divine mind, right? And I needed it. I wasn't in a place, although I had always been spiritual and seeking, I don't think I had access because the egoic idea of self, right, is designed, the body idea of self is designed to veil and to separate. That's why we're on this planet in these bodies. We're attempting to separate. And that's not something that you need to believe. It's something that you may or may not experience. Like your experience, everyone's experience is all that matters. That's what a spiritual journey is. It's not a religious thing. It's not dogmatic. It's not about belief. It's about taking ideas, great teachings into your consciousness and experimenting in your consciousness. See what holds water and what doesn't. If it doesn't, move on. But I was not in a place where I could access that very quiet stillness and that incredible wisdom and truth. So I got to go there. Pretty rapidly, I went through a series of books. You've got the Gita there, some others, and the Course in Miracles, which I'm sure had been passing over the transom through my consciousness over and over through life. It just jumped out at me, and I knew within a few minutes of opening it, this is what I was going to spend many years. And actually, I knew I'd spend my whole life with it. Actually, because your intuition's really turned on after a journey. It's easy to know what is. It's much easier to discern what is truth and what is illusion. And so with this ability to now get quiet, to meditate, to be in touch with that other higher self, if you want to call it that. There's a lot of names. By the way, we'll use all sorts of words here. Don't get hung up on the words, because the words are interchangeable, right? And all the words are distorted. None of them are accurate. It's again, it's all about experience.
Because we can't define what is undefinable, right?
And because if you think about the physical reality, the physical experience, words are a big part of the physical experience that we teach children and ourselves, and almost all words are about this is you, this is that, this is you, this is that. It's literally a tool of separation. But the truth is so powerful, you can use a tool of separation to point the way, right? There's that old Buddhist saying, you can point at the moon, but it doesn't make your finger the moon, right? So you can point at truth, but it doesn't mean your finger's truth. You can use words to point to truth, but it doesn't mean the words are truth. The truth is just beyond that. So, but it isn't outside of you. It isn't beyond you. It's beyond your intellect, but it's not beyond your experience. And what happened to me very quickly was the Course is pretty adamant about letting go, forgiveness, release.
Over
as
and
you,
over
as you
and
know,
over.
It's not subtle. And as I practiced, that's 7 of happiness that I couldn't budge. It was a boulder my whole life. I couldn't budge. Very rapidly, as I checked in, how happy. 7.5, 8, 8.5, 9, 9.5. Don't really need to measure it anymore. I don't use the scale. I don't wonder. It's just because what you think happiness is release of suffering. What you find happiness is just yourself. It is what you are made of.
Beautiful.
It is truth.
Yep.
Love. Peace.
Yeah.
When you first find it, it shows, for me anyway, everyone's different. When you first find it, I was so excited that it's bubbling. It's happiness.
Yeah.
Later, for me, it's become more peace. And it's foundational. It's rock solid. It doesn't change. It's not there sometimes and not there other times. And so it's a completely different definition of happiness and actually understanding of it that I ever had prior. So the experience of it, true happiness or true peace, very different than the slight relief from the egoic overlord, right? That sometimes the ego story will make you relax a little bit. The ego relaxes, it doesn't hold you down as much, and you do slide into your true self, you relax, and you feel the feeling that is happiness. All that's happening is you're feeling yourself.
Yeah.
You don't know that, and we don't have a lot of teachings within pop culture, right? Which is what I was using. Everyone was telling me, it's outside you, it's outside you, it's outside you. You're going to need money. You're going to need this. You're going to need that. You're going to need these cars. You're going to need this kind of house. You're going to need 2 houses. You're going to need a ranch. You're going to, I feel somewhat fortunate that I got to really exhaust the different external ideas.
Yep.
But what certainly is true is they didn't do anything. None of them changed that number from a 7 to a 7.18 or anything. No change at all. And suddenly this other thing comes along, and I'm released, and myself comes through. And all the benefits of that. I call it heaven on earth, but you get to walk through the same, seemingly same place, but everything's different. Everyone you meet with meets you differently. No matter how crusty they might be at the beginning, pretty soon they soften, they change. You're exchanging texts, incredible. And this is beautiful. The people you love the most, you stop being that which is difficult for them. You stop providing that, even if they want it, right? Because sometimes that's what people need. They're working on their own separation, their own egoic ideas, but you just aren't there for that anymore.
You mean it takes? We stop focusing so much
on
investing in them changing because it's going to make us feel better if they change. We remove
Well,
that.
what I mean is, have you ever been in traffic and somebody gets upset with you in traffic?
Yeah.
Right? And they flip you off?
Yeah.
And so the old me flips them off, right?
Uh-huh.
But I do it a little longer, a little better, try to get the finger up higher, or whatever that might mean, right? Now, I wasn't in a bad mood. I might have begun the day in a beautiful mood, right? But what they required was that someone join their play.
Yeah.
Right? Their creation. I think most people, this is a great segue to get into the why. Like, why would you want to do a practice? Why would you want to have a practice of forgiveness? do you get triggered? Do you ever get triggered? Because
yes.
if you ever get triggered, then let's examine what's happening when you get triggered. And I think most of the people listening to this probably have some meditation practice. Maybe they've got a long-standing meditation practice. And they've had that feeling of being true to themselves, feeling that come in. It doesn't really come in, that's the wrong words. Feeling that truth unveiled, right? As the ego is put aside, as the mind is quieted. All you need to do is be quiet, and all that's left is the truth. So that happens. Feeling really good, go out into the world. And this is what I hear all the time from people. Mm-hmm. I'm really good, I'm blissed out. I'm blissed out in the mornings. Mm-hmm. And then I go in the world and I get triggered.
Yeah.
So what is it that's getting triggered? It's not your higher self that's getting triggered.
Correct.
Right? It's these ideas that from your past that you are bringing forward. My mental image is my cargo pants are stuffed with bad vibrations.
I love that.
Right? And I used to go out in the world just stuffed with bad vibrations. I could meditate in the morning. I could get into this great space. And we know how vibrations work. If you put two musical instruments against each other and you pluck the low E on one, the other's gonna vibrate. Mm-hmm. This is the same thing.
Yep.
This is the same thing that's happening to you when you go into the world and someone is rude to you or someone is impatient with you. Or now we think because of the way the ego is designed, we've projected that out. We have projected that out. We think that it's happening to us, but we're bringing it.
Yeah.
It's too late. Like you are not going to be able to resist. That vibration is with you. So you will come crashing down. You might be able to resist saying something.
Yeah.
But you won't be able to resist leaving that interaction feeling that vibration. Mm-hmm. Greed, despair, whatever it is that you encountered. And so what's the process? Like how do you get rid of all those, your jacket pockets, all your pockets are jammed with vibrations. Like how do you get rid of these vibrations that I think most of us would say, yeah, I don't want those.
So vibrations meaning in the psychological language, meaning old memories of the past, grievances against mom or dad, limiting beliefs, all these ideas that we all have learned and they became our identities. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the Course mostly uses grievances.
Yeah.
So something that your egoic mind has used to say, that's what they're like, this is what I'm like. Mm-hmm. Right? They're a cheat, I'm honest. Yeah. They're greedy, I'm generous.
Yeah.
All these things, we actually, if you experience that, then you have greedy in you.
Yes.
And in your effort to get it out, we try to paint it on this, what we think is external reality. And it presents back. It's very effective.
Yeah, it's this illusion that if I project my whatever form of pain, guilt, might be guilt of I don't make enough money or guilt of whatever that is. I might even carry guilt from my own mother. The ego thinks that if I project that out, it's a way to get rid of my guilt.
Right. But
so it's my salvation.
But the way we are as spiritual beings, the way we are when we give, we receive.
Right. Exactly.
So we cannot push something out without instantly receiving it.
Yep.
If you give a teaching, you receive that teaching. You talked about that earlier, right?
Yeah.
So that mechanism that's inherent to what we really are, which are spiritual beings having a physical experience, that is always operating.
Yeah.
And so the process of letting go, if you do it purely through meditation, as Buddhists will say, it could take many lifetimes, and you'll have to practice as a Buddhist many lifetimes. There is a really accelerated way to let go. And you could absolutely radically change your consciousness in certainly one lifetime. I think just a year or so, if you decide to like take on a practice like this.
If you're really willing to let go.
You gotta really want it.
You gotta be sincere, because as you spoke earlier, you said everybody who's listening to this would agree, will say, yeah, I want to let this go. And I encounter this with clients all the time. Yeah, I want to let this fear go, as an example. Okay, and then when we get quiet and they are very connected with the voices inside them, and a lot of times connect more with the ego voice, I ask, if we can take it this way from you right now, would you really let go? And then I can see in the body language, because I'm attuned with them, that the resistance coming up. And I ask, there's a resistance in you. Tell me what the resistance say. Well, the resistance say, this fear has protected me my entire life. So if I let go this fear, who will be, which is the fear of death. And we know where that fear is coming from, because it is the what we call the death of the ego, but it's not really the ego. It's that belief system, that program, that conditioning that it's that will die. And the person needs to be very willing and sincere in that letting go, I have found. And or had so much suffering that they can't look out anymore. That they yes. For me, that was the feeling, is I've exhausted this outward search. And I don't know where, there's only one other place I can turn. Yep.
And for most of my life, what I've heard from other people, and not spiritual leaders, but like just general people, is, man, don't turn in. Like, it's just dark in there,
Yeah.
And that is the egoic teaching of our culture. Another thing we should just say about ego. Ego is not inflated sense of self. It's separated sense of self. Mm-hmm. It's sense of self as not part of a unified consciousness. Yeah. And so it is equally happy to take a terrible story, right? So the ego might say, oh, I'm a big successful guy, and I've done this and this, and I've achieved all these wonderful things. Sure. And if that makes it feel separate, it's happy with that.
Yeah.
But it might say, the whole world's against me.
Yep.
My life is a train wreck.
Both ways.
I can't get a job. I can't get, it will use either one.
Yeah. And it can be the victim or the narcissist.
It doesn't care. And if you look at, sometimes homeless people have really intense egos, right? Yelling at the world. So the more an ego you are, the more insane you are, essentially.
Yeah.
And so as they fall into that, right, they are so separate. It's a tough thing to look at, because especially if you know what they are, right, which is perfect, sinless, right, a little spark of divine love, and not even little. I shouldn't say little, but you see people on the success spectrum also completely lose themselves in that, right?
We see that in format of drug abuse to suicides.
Yeah.
Because the pain is so deep.
Yeah.
After you achieve so much, you're pursuing the happiness, which I really think people are really looking for, peace and freedom, and they get there and they don't find it. And unfortunately, they think there's something deeply wrong with them.
Yeah.
And that's the separation so severe that despair takes over them and they end their lives.
Indeed.
So let's talk about
So we don't want that.
No, we don't.
We don't want that.
Because there's so much beauty here.
And you won't end your life. Your life will continue. You are life. You can come to that realization through experiments that you run in your own consciousness. Some of it you could do with substances, but I have to say, just with your own practice of meditation, it doesn't have to be anything spectacular, right? It's not about the TV version of meditation. It's not about like being the perfect yogi.
No, it's not about this huge mystical experience either.
It's very real. It's not weird. It's never weird because it's just true.
Yeah.
You experience it,
yeah.
right? Yeah. And then, oh, well, I know that's true. So maybe now there are let's talk about what forgiveness isn't.
Yeah.
Because we're taught what letting go isn't. We're taught a version, right? Because the majority of the school is the egoic idea of separation. That's why we're here. That's, what it's about for the most part here. And the majority of the teachings, cultural and individual, are about that idea. And so we are taught that forgiveness is something like this, right? You've done something to me. Mm-hmm. It's real. It's quite terrible.
Yeah.
Right. and here's the thing though. I'm a bigger person than you are.
You're gonna take the higher road, right?
I am.
Oh, you're so good.
And I am going to forgive you, right? I'm gonna relieve you. Mm-hmm. And people love to say, I'd forgive, but I won't forget. Right?
Oh, that's a very common line. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Which is a good sign that, you're not using forgiveness. You're not using the real version of letting go.
Absolutely not forgiveness, yeah.
So that version that we're taught, I'm better than you, also another way of saying I am not you, I am not made of the same thing as you, we do not share a common source, right? It says all those things. So it's a version of fear and hate, really. Mm-hmm. It does sometimes make you feel a little bit better.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
the ego,
the entitlement, the power.
Yeah, the ego gets a little hit from it.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't feel anything like true forgiveness. As you've experienced true forgiveness feels more like a fire burning through something. It's a transformation of something that you had held and brought forward and had built a kind of almost mental altar to. And it is consumed.
Yeah.
I often, if it's a big thing, a big grievance, it feels like after the fire goes through, mentally I'll blow on it, and it just falls because it's all ash. Now, again, everything's happening. Consciousness is always primary. It's always the causation of all things. So, do you need to blow on your ashen? That's not necessary. Mm-hmm. It's just something that I've taken to doing, and it just feels like it puts a kind of a little period on it. Mm-hmm. And it's I can still remember it, but it's totally transformed. It doesn't have any energy associated to it.
Yeah, there's no emotional charge anymore.
There's not that vibration that's associated with it, right? Yeah,
yep.
That lower vibration that's associated with that experience that locked me into that, and I had brought forward. So here we get into what's going to be challenging. I feel like this is really challenging. Some of these aspects of true letting go can be challenging for people, because there are three pieces that you need, components, I guess we could call them, mental components. Mm-hmm. One is you have to know yourself, your true self. You have to have experienced it. And so through meditation or medicine or contemplation or whatever works for you, you have to have touched that thing. And it's not difficult. We could do it now, right? We could run the experiment now.
Yeah.
Because it really is very true, I think, for most people, if they're willing to just sit and just examine and run the experiment. And that is, and it's nice to think about some of these things, because it gives people who are in intellect a lot, sometimes they need a little permission, right?
Yep.
Like, what is my permission for not being just a body? What is my permission for maybe being consciousness instead, and however that feels to them? And so to a couple things that I like to talk to people about is, you're not your thoughts, and you can run this experiment. Just go ahead, close your eyes, sit, begin to have thoughts. What is having the thoughts? Does that which is having the thoughts get changed in any way by the thoughts? or does it remain consistent? Okay, so now I'm not my thoughts. That's nice. You get a little bit of space there, you know that. And you can run that across your whole life. There's not a thought you've had in your entire life that still persists, that didn't just fall away, right? They all come and go, yet you remain. That observer remains, and it is unchanging. Another easy one to run is think about your consciousness as a child. Is it a different consciousness? Did it get older? Did it change? Did it get wrinkles? Did it get gray in the beard? You know, did, like, your consciousness from the moment you can remember being consciousness, it's the exact same thing. Yeah. That is the essential you. So spending time, it doesn't take a lot, but spending time to begin to understand that is you. More than this other personality construct. Not that the personality construct isn't something, this is what we're dealing with, and we're trying to somewhat undo because it's offering you suffering instead of what you want, which is joy and happiness, bliss. So maybe that's what you are. Now, this one for me is easy, but I think it's challenging for some people. If that is what I am, if you get to that space and, oh, what I am feels infinite, boundless, innocent, right? Pure, powerful, unstained, all those things. Does it make sense that my brother or sister is of the same? It just seems rational to me. Sometimes it's good to remember a brother and sister in the purest, like that glimpse you got of them when they were just the most amazing, just pure version of that higher self. You know, we've all seen others, yes. Right? And you're not seeing with your eyes, but you've seen that with your heart. And you can go back to that, and then you know. Now you know. Run this over and over. Again, this is a practice. It won't happen in a day. Well, it might. I pray that it does for anyone.
Me too.
But it may not. And
just the process of disidentifying the ego, know that your spirit. It to me, it all depends on how much resistance somebody has to believe that, and a lot of people don't believe that. And for those, it might take lifetimes to even get to their understanding. It doesn't matter. No. Or it might take one medicine journey, or can take 1 month, 30 days of meditation.
It's the greatest thing you can do. If it takes a lifetime,
it
perfect.
Is.
Because it's the greatest thing you can do with your life.
Yeah.
What is everyone searching for? Everyone's searching for happiness. They just don't know that search for happiness is the search for self.
Yep. The high self. I say everybody's searching for God, but I know God is a loaded word, but everybody's looking for the capital S self.
Here's a silly version of it. I think of us, I think of myself, I guess. Let's just use myself in some ways as Gumby. Remember Gumby?
I do.
And this is, if you're young, you might not. You'll have to look up Gumby. But Gumby was this claymation character, right? And I feel like what we're told is as if you told Gumby, go find clay. And clay meaning happiness.
Yeah.
Go find what you are. And Gumby searched and searched and searched. And then at the end, you said, Gumby, you're made of clay. That's us. We search for love and happiness our whole lives, and it's somewhat of a cruel riddle, because when you do finally turn in, you find, oh, that was not fair to tell me to look out there, right? When it was inside. So you need to know what you are. You need to know what your brother and sister are. And then you need a sense of what this physical world is. And in the Hindu traditions, they call it the illusion. I think in Course in Miracles they often call it the illusion.
They do.
They sometimes call
insanity.
Sometimes calls it insanity. Sometimes calls it the dream.
That's right.
Yeah. I really like the dream.
Yeah, me too.
Because I think now you can go into quantum physics and find a lot of intellectual support for the idea that this reality that we're experiencing is not what's really happening.
Right.
It's pretty clear from on the scientific side that what we're experiencing is different than what is really happening. Mm-hmm. And so what we use as a measure of reality, what most egoic, what most humans use, is we use how real does it feel. That's our measure.
Yeah.
And so it feels very real.
Yeah. If you're in pain, you feel sad. If you're angry, if you
enraged, if I burn myself,
you feel it, and you call that real.
Yeah. And so we call it. Now, when you dream, when you go to sleep, mm-hmm. and you dream that other dream, you rarely wake up because, oh, this is so fake.
Right.
So the consciousness, right, its measure of reality is clearly not the perfect yardstick. Mm-hmm. It's not the perfect measure.
Right.
Otherwise, we wouldn't even be able to dream. We'd just be laughing off every dream. But that's not what happens, right? The Hindu tradition and the Course in Miracles would say, because of what you are, which is spiritual, which is that thing that we're getting in touch with, right? This is not your native land.
That's right.
This is a play space that you've created. Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be fun. It really is supposed to be fun. We've taken it way too seriously.
Right.
Which is part of the issue.
Yep.
And we've used it too much to prove separation. Mm-hmm. But you come to this space, and you need to awaken from this dream. Even though you'll still be in the dream, mm-hmm. you'll be a lucid dreamer in the dream. That's very much the feeling of awakening. Yep. In the dream.
I think that's a great description.
So a lucid dreamer during your day-to-day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know it's a dream.
And it's much more malleable.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it creates a distance, and you don't take everything so hard and seriously.
But you need to know that this is not your native land, that you will persist, right? And so what we do with this physical reality, the nature of grievance, the nature of not letting go, is this really happened.
You make it real.
And it happened, and even though I can't show it to you, I can't pull it forward in time. Maybe I could show you a picture of it. Maybe I could show you a document.
Because it's always related to the past.
It's always in the past. Mm-hmm. You really can't get it here.
Nope.
Like if you could try to describe a grievance from your past, but you can't get it here to me.
Yeah.
So truth, the infinite self, it exists outside of time. But the ego uses time
to punish us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To bring these grievances, make these grievances and call them sin or call them forever. It's just the idea that this happened and it's forever. And these things that happen prove someone else's guilt and my innocence. So rather than understanding the nature of your innocence, which is part of what you are, because you are innocent, mm-hmm. having a dream of guilt and sin.
That's right.
Right? What, if you had a child, right, and your child had a dream, and in the dream they did something bad, right? I've never heard of a parent saying, you're grounded.
Yeah.
Right? Or punished in any way. Mm-hmm. But the idea of things that occur in this particular dream, and now what makes something real versus not real? In these traditions, and in my consciousness that I've explored, is it's real if it's infinite. If it's forever. That's the nature of reality. That which is unchanging. If it changes, then it's not reality. It's a sub-reality. Don't go walk in front of buses unless you're ready to exit, and that's fine, right? I would think that there's a better use of your time here. I know there is. And I think letting go is what would be that better use, and then helping other people let go.
Yep.
So you need those three components. You need to know what you are. You need to know what the other is. There is no other. They are as you, right? And you need to know what this is. And you take that event from your past and you bring it into a quiet space as you sit, and you understand it anew. You forgive it. You let it go. You undo your judgment that held it in place.
Yep.
Right? By seeing it as it is, given the infinite life of you and other, and your native land, which is not this one, that you will wake from. That's challenging if you were going to have that consciousness all the time, all day. You will eventually. But you only need it for an instant. Less than 1/1 billionth of a second. You need those three aspects to be in your experience. And a transformational fire will rip through that event.
What I see is almost like you just need a snapshot of that truth, and in that instant, it burns.
It's just an instant.
It's just an instant, and then you realize there's nothing to forgive.
And this is a interesting part of a practice, right? Because you may get it right, you may have to take a bunch of shots at it.
It might,
but I guarantee you, if you really work on it,
the intention is there to let go, and I think intention goes hand to hand with willingness. If you sincerely have the intention to let go, it's inevitable. It will happen. Period.
And when it does, it is an indescribable feeling. And one that, like, addiction's a word I don't really want to use, but it's almost, once you get it to happen, you start, the way I used to say it is, I just like looking in the seat cushions of my mind for other things to forgive. Because every forgiveness, huge aspects of those negative energies that you've been pulling forward, if you forgive one thing, for me, in my experience, it seems like this whole category might slough off. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like this shedding of this energy that you've been bringing forward, this lightness appears. Big changes. Sometimes with what you think is a very minor forgiveness, you can have these like cascading effects. So it is a practice, and what I thought would be, what I do, I already gave out my phone number once, right? But what I thought would be fun is if anybody wants to do this, always my highest preference would be I help you with the course, right? Yeah. That would always be my highest preference.
Because the course is a great teaching device.
And especially if you do it right. If you read it, it's not called a text in miracles. It's called a course in miracles. You need to do the course. It's 365 days.
It's a commitment.
This is 12 days of letting go.
Love it.
So what I thought we could list off different kinds of grievances. And people can write them down. Maybe you could put it in the description.
I will. Yeah.
And if anyone wants to, do this, and you can do it over 24 days. You could do it over a longer period of time. But 12 days of letting go.
I love it. Let's go.
And if you need any help or guidance, call me or text me, 303-718-7048. And I would love to do that. And if we need to, we could get on a Zoom or something. So I have them in sort of what I think. Now, this is not true because everyone's got different grievances, but they get a little more intense as we go. The way, because if someone's starting a forgiveness practice and they have this thing that is just so large. Well, you had someone write in.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you want me to bring that question?
Well, yeah, bring it up.
Let me bring that up. There's a great question that came from the audience that is very curious about this conversation. And let's go there. So this is from a mother. I'm not going to say her name to protect her privacy, but this is her question. How to forgive when the outcome was a loss of a precious life, a child? How do I forgive somebody who was so reckless and irresponsible with guns? How do I forgive somebody who is so disrespectful to the safety of others? So clearly this is a mother with a lot of pain who lost her son. Yeah. This is what we can call a very intense one, a big grievance, and there's a lot. I can imagine the pain that she's holding. Yeah, I can imagine, but I've never had that exact. Yeah, because you're a father. Grievance. So. Yeah, right there. There's a separation, a difference. What I would think is I probably wouldn't take on that to begin with. Yeah. I would go at some of the other things and see. Now, sometimes you have to begin with those that are just blocking everything else. The massive ones, yeah. A friend of mine, her son was one of the victims of Sandy Hook. And she is one of the all-time greats of forgiveness, and letting go. Yeah. Incredible. And she's done incredible work in the space, and she's had the energy to do that and transform this. And she doesn't, through the practice, I would, I don't believe in death. That's one of the things that's happened. And I've been able to commune with my father who passed away, with my mother who passed away, and certain things that I would not have been open to because I was so set on me against the world. This was my design, right? Those limitations have fallen away, I've got a different experience with that. But everyone's journey is different, and the question suggests that person sees some benefit, right? The call is always there. The call to return. And so I would probably try to start with some things like, well, forgive your mom. Forgive your dad. I was thinking about the same thing. Start with the childhood aspects of forgiveness. Start with mom and dad. I would agree with you. And I think what would potentially happen is so many aspects of self and truth begin to open up in your consciousness. The heart starts to really open and expand. Yeah, that there is a chance that you get around to that. Yeah. Very, very painful one. The moral, everyone has a painful life. I mean, you work with a lot of people, right? And the moral of the ego is always, I've had it way worse than you have. Yeah. It's always the same. No matter what the particulars are, its moral is, I've had it worse than you. Yeah. And so sometimes that includes some very, very difficult experiences. Yeah. So that would be my suggestion. Start with what feel like smaller things. Yeah. And see how the heart opens and responds. Yeah. Okay. I'm glad that we did that. Yeah, me too. Because almost everyone has in their consciousness one of those. Something big. Yeah. Everyone. And this one is such that I cannot begin this practice. Yeah. It is the
the defense that the ego, the body mind has against you discovering that it is not the truth. Yeah. Like you said, it will pass. It's the only thing at risk.
It will. And it's a process that cannot be done intellectually. That's why I love that you have this process, because I think the biggest issue with people trying to let go, as we say, forgive or release, is that they try to do from the ego mind.
Yeah.
And they're gonna feel like they can't do it because it is a different language.
Yeah. And you can't intellectually say, I am a different source. I am a higher self.
Can't.
I am
you can't
my
fake
brother.
That.
You can't.
You can't. There's no fake here until you make it. No,
you can't see the illusion or the dream intellectually or just through quantum physics. You have to do it experientially.
Yeah.
So you have to have some sort of meditation practice. I imagine most people do. If you don't, I love the Isha Kriya. It's the mantra just cuts right to the quick. I am not the body. I am not even the mind. And
there's a video, right? We can put a link under the show notes.
And Isha is a brand. Yeah. So, but that particular mantra is really powerful if you want to do this kind of work. You want to go through the days now?
Yeah, let's go through the days.
Okay, day 1. Disappointment. Somebody like disappointed you. Mm-hmm. Something, some event you found very disappointing.
Yeah.
Fairly easy, hopefully.
Oh,
I can think of many from my life. Day 2. Ignored, unappreciated. I actually had to forgive one of these today. I was pulling into my office, and there was a guy blocking the way, mm-hmm. and he just was so blah 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 about doing whatever he was doing, and somebody told him, oh, you need to move, right? Because my neighbor said, yeah, you need to move. He just kept doing his thing, you know, and I probably sat there. It wasn't long, right? But there was a little piece of me that was impatient. Mm-hmm. You know, it was great. It was like this micro teaching, right? Mm-hmm. So now knowing the mirror, the way the mirror works, I must be at times disrespectful of other people's time. Otherwise, this couldn't be happening. Yet at the same time, I know that my brothers and my sisters are what holds me safe. Mm-hmm. I don't worry about my brothers and sisters as a threat. I know they hold me safe. So these two aspects of my consciousness played with him taking kind of a long time. One guy coming out and saying, sorry he's taking so long. And then his boss comes out and says, you got to move. And so it was 2 minutes out of my day. It didn't have any effect, but I know the old me. Mm-hmm. I would have had to say something nasty. Yeah. It would have ruined my cargo pants were packed with that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, day 2, ignored or unappreciated. Day 3, excluded, like we've been left out of something.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
Is that a big one for you?
I think it's a big one for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's not something I encounter. I think a disappointment for me is something I encounter more, or ignored sometimes.
And I think as you go through these, some people might have the same grievance, and it might come up more than once.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
With these different, that's fine.
Yep.
Don't feel like it has to be a separate. If it comes up again, then we need to work on it.
Yeah.
Then take it back in to your meditation.
Right. If it's a pattern, it's definitely a sign that you need to do deeper work of forgiveness.
And again, these are words. Yeah. There aren't really categories of separation of the ego. So day 4, sometime I was belittled. We've all been belittled. Maybe I was belittled a little bit. Maybe I was feeling a little belittlement, you know? Day 5, intimidated. Mm. Day 6, fooled. Like tricked.
Somebody lied.
Day 7, cheated. Could be money, could be relationship, you know.
Yeah.
Day 8, betrayed. Maybe that's, you know, going to be the same thing that you went to work on with cheated.
Yeah.
And if it takes you a couple days, that's fine. Like if this takes 24 days. Day 9, abandoned.
Oh, they're
getting more intense, right?
That gets more intense because abandon is, I have found in my own work with myself and work with clients, that's a major deep wound that comes from childhood.
And abandon is very core to the ego, if you think about it. So it's because what the egoic idea is I am separate from you. And abandon is really another word for it's me alone against God.
Yeah. The wound is really God abandonment.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's when we
or source
path,
or love's abandonment.
Yes.
I was just use some other words because people, like you said, can get hung up on the God word. Day 10, bullied. Day 11, abused. Now it could be physical, it could be mental. And day 12, injured. And that could be like an injury from abuse, or it could be an injury that you sustained with a car accident. You know, if you're me, a lot of motorcycle accidents.
Right.
You know,
I found the most common is an emotional injury. Yeah.
Yeah.
Abuse, neglect.
Anytime, I've definitely, within injuries, I've found grievances embedded in, and usually multiple within it.
Yeah.
So that's my 12 days.
So to be clear, you go through each day, let's say day 1, that is disappointment, you would just sit and meditate and think about the areas or people in your life that have disappointed you, perhaps.
Yeah.
So you just work on disappointment.
A moment when I've been disappointed with somebody else.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Or someone's been disappointed with me. It doesn't really matter.
Right. Somebody's disappointed at me.
Yeah. Now,
and I feel guilty about that.
Yeah. And we talked, and this is really good because I think we need to touch on this, which is really important. You're going to know yourself. You're going to know the other, right? In the inherent innocence of that which you are, right? You can never forgive another without at the same time forgiving yourself.
That's right.
Because I think it's the implication of just, it is a oneness. So how could you forget, or how could you forgive or let go of an aspect of the infinite without all of the infinite? But some people find it's easier to forgive or let go of their part than somebody else's. This is an illusion. Right? It's not really easier to do one or the other because they both go off at the same time.
Yeah.
But if that's helpful for you, if self-forgiveness is easier, or if there's an easier place to start, or it feels like there is, do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting because what I observe mostly among people, my own clients, is that they have easier time forgiving others. Versus, it's in a way easier for them to forgive mom or dad. And then when I ask, now you're ready to release this, release yourself, forgive yourself. And that's what I sense, the instant resistance.
Well, and if they say they've forgiven their mother, but not themselves, then they haven't. Yeah, if they say they've let go of that trauma or that grievance or that moment, that experience, and they let go by seeing the other as innocent, but they didn't see themselves as innocent in the same moment, then it didn't work.
That's right.
And so as you play with this in your consciousness, you may have the egoic bump, and it will feel very much like getting a pay raise, or right, going to a really neat restaurant, or being on Instagram and someone liking something that you posted, right? That's what false letting go and forgiveness will feel like. The other will feel transformational. It will be a kind of alchemy, I got to use fire. It just consumes what was this altar built to separation, and it just takes it away. So just look for that as an experience within this practice. And when you start to feel it, also know that you'll get better and better at it. Right? People think that they're good at their mind. Why? Because they've had it their whole lives. But most people are not actually good at controlling their minds. If you say to most people, don't think of monkeys.
I'm going to think of monkeys.
Yeah.
Now, I want to...
But some people you could say, don't think of monkeys, and they don't.
Something comes to mind, which is, we don't want to give this message that if you do a process of forgiveness, and let's say this becomes your daily practice, it doesn't imply that you will not get triggered anymore. You still will, because there are many veils, right? There's many, you might forgive one aspect. It makes me think of relationships, for example. When people are in intimate relationships.
Yeah.
There's this pattern that, let's say there's a conflict among the partners, and somebody is doing the Course in Miracles, somebody is doing the practice, connect with God, is letting that go. And then a week, 2 weeks, even a month passes by, another conflict rises, and that person gets triggered again. It's just hitting another veil. It's another aspect that...
But they will go...
We're holding something inside us that it's being projected. So this shows up. That's why, I think it's Ramdas that says we're not in relationships to be happy. We're in relationships to grow. But ultimately, happy is our nature. Mm-hmm. But it's just a scenario, because I'm trying to bring this also to this, I guess, 3D world where you're going to be doing this practice, and like you say, you were minor, like you had a minor trigger this morning with that person blocking your
I can't say it was a trigger. I was able to see it was very different than,
very different.
Yeah, it wasn't triggered.
Just bring do you get triggered? Do you still get triggered?
I think that lucid dreaming thing is a good way to think, sort of know what it feels like. Yeah. I don't really get triggered. Triggered means a loss of control to me, right? You do something that you don't really, that your highest self would want you to do. Your emotions
take over you. Yeah. And you are in a state of fear and separation.
You're swept away by it. Yeah. You're no longer in control.
Right.
I don't experience that.
Yeah.
And so I would say that this is a promise of relief from that entirely, but each one of the grievances represents another vibration that needs to be, if you think about like vibration and us moving up, right? And we're moving from octave to octave of existence. Our resistance to certain vibrations is what holds us. And so the ultimate, we're getting into stuff that's a little bit deeper another show, but like the ultimate idea is I allow all vibrations within this octave to move through me. Mm-hmm. Then you get to go to the next octave. Yeah. But until you can do that,
you got to clear.
Yeah, until you can do that. So every interaction, this is great. Just we'll touch on this, because what I love about this process of letting go is you will ultimately run out of like actually things, but you get to test your consciousness. So go in and you do your letting go, right? And then you walk into the world and you see what comes up.
Yep.
If something comes up that's disruptive, know that it's in you and you're trying to put it out there.
It's a blessing.
It's a total blessing.
I see it as a blessing.
But it isn't a blessing until you can do something with it.
That's right.
It's a bit of a curse if you have no idea of what to do with this negative vibration that's been presented to you, and you have no idea of how to get rid of it. As soon as you know how to get rid of it, you're like, thank you, I'll take that one, and I'll take one of those.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what, I'll take 3 of these too.
Yeah.
It's like shopping.
To me, the triggers now, and I'm not here sitting saying they are fun, I'm not going to use the word. And what I'm going to say is I am grateful when I get triggered now, because it's showing me where I'm still holding an illusion. Mm-hmm. It's when I say, oop, I got caught today. Mm-hmm. I got caught big time. There's a moment in my trip to Brazil. I had beautiful time with family, and my old self would have been triggered many times there. And I was just in peace and observing and feeling so much love and compassion, especially about my father, who I hadn't seen in 18 years.
Yeah.
I felt like I wanted to just hug and kiss him. And that wasn't true in my past. And there's this little moment during dinner that I got caught when I'm trying to influence my mother to eat a certain way because it's healthier, my way is healthier. And it was beautiful because I caught myself and I did get triggered, and all I did is like, I walk into the bathroom, took a break, I caught myself, it's like, and I instantly reconnect with truth, and I was able to recalibrate myself, sit back at the table and be in a total state of love and forgiveness, versus my old self would have sat there the whole time and being that illusion, that perception that nobody sees me, nobody cares what I have to say, nobody respects me. Right? So that would be the old self. So it's, to me, being triggered now is like, thank you for showing me where I still have a little bit of letting go to do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And what's another sign, I like looking for like offering signs to people that this is working.
Yeah.
One of the major signs is you do this process. Let's say that you forgive your father, right? You think that you've done something, so it should feel different to be you. But what happens is you see your father, and your father acts what seems to be totally differently. Like your father presents a self.
He was like a Zen monk,
right?
When I encountered him after 18 years. He was so Zen out.
So funny.
And he doesn't study any of this.
But if you would have brought these other vibrations, he would not have been. He would have presented. My father, who passed away about 1.5 years ago, the last 6 months of his life, he wasn't doing anything, but I was on a tear of forgiveness. And we had, father-son. It's a very difficult relationship. It's a microcosm of father and son, of source. And I'm, every time I go to see him, I had set my intentions for 57 years. I'm not going to fight with my dad today. I'm not going to, and I'd go see him and 20 seconds
Don't focus on the monkey.
20 seconds in, we're sideways. And in the last 6 months, we had the best time.
Yeah.
And I know that he wasn't doing anything differently, but he seemed to be just more and more fun, and we just laughed and had a great time. And by the time, ultimately, my friends were always like, "Your dad's the best. Your dad's the best." And he was. He's great, right? But my experience was not the same as their experience.
Right.
But at the end, my experience was and I thought it was the same as their experience of this guy.
Beautiful.
And it just hit me like a wave, like it just washed. I'm like, oh my God. This is the guy that everyone was so crazy about, that I never got to see.
Yeah.
Right?
Perception.
And that experience moved even after he passed. Like we spent more time together. And honestly, after he passed and there was no body, it was even more overwhelming. His consciousness and what he offered, just spectacular.
Yeah.
So there's many, many benefits to this practice. It is a practice. You do get so good at it that you can do it in an instant. That's the other thing that comes up for me is, you could go in the bathroom and you could like undo one.
Yeah.
That sounded weird.
You don't need to go to the bathroom, by the way.
Yeah,
you can be sitting still in the same environment. And you just, I like to say, recalibrate yourself. You just simply can say, ooh, I got caught in illusion.
But you could also do a forgiveness. Yeah. You can do those 3 parts. You could know self. You could know your father.
Yeah.
You could know the event, right? Whatever came up, right? And you can forgive it so quickly because you've practiced it. It's like playing the piano or tennis or anything. If you don't practice, people think that they could be good at mind without any practice. They think that they could and it's ludicrous. It's like, let's say that you read every book on every spiritual book that's ever come out, right? Well, and you didn't ever practice. You're not going to be too good. No, you're not going to be.
You're just going to be
healed.
A highly spiritual, intellectual person.
It would be the same as if you bought every book on tennis and got
Never
the best
tennis.
coaches, and you spent years reading the books, and then you went to Wimbledon.
Yeah.
You know, like, you're going to get smoked.
Yeah.
You know, like, you can't hit the ball back.
That's a very good analogy. Wow, this has been great. I know we can go to many places. As you said, this topic is it's massive. So, you know, I think we addressed one of the questions already. Another question that one of our brothers brought up was, I'm doing a lot of this process. I have letting go a lot, and I continue doing this process. Now I would like to know how I can help others in this process. He's ready to facilitate this with others. So what would be your best advice for somebody who wants to help more others letting go? And I think it's a question for all of us, because I wanted to continue helping more.
Well, I think it's a sign that he actually has let go.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that turns on in your consciousness is these things, many of the things that you've the false idols that you've had, money, power, sex, relationships, whatever those false idols were, right? They start to fall away, and you find yourself just wanting to share what helped you, right?
Yeah. So
I don't know what his teaching is. So for me, I feel very solid within this teaching of A Course in Miracles. And I know that I can't hurt anybody. Because one of the most important things is, don't make the distance longer. Don't make the journey longer for somebody. So if you come with certain distortions about yourself and you're still too much in ego, you know, the ego of yourself as a healer, the ego, like, would you see yourself as those things? Well, no, you can't be those things. Like, you aren't that. And we've all experienced the worst teachers in the world are the teachers who don't think they have anything to learn. If you can't learn while you're teaching, then you're a terrible teacher. If you know that they're one and the same, so when you brought it up earlier, right? When they're one and the same, then you actually have something to offer. So I would think I would need to know more. A little bit.
No,
like, what is the teaching?
I will ask and suggest, and I will see where he's at. And God, I think you covered this so well. And I love that we didn't even go to beliefs and where this whole concept of guilt came from. That can be a different podcast. But I think what I love about our conversation is that we are focusing on the letting go. And ultimately, that's what we need to focus. Instead of intellectually trying to understand where the guilt came from, and, you know, we'll be blaming where this concept came from. But I think you already explained so well how this is all about separation. It doesn't matter. These teachings came from religion, came from your parents, came from your culture, came from your church. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, it's an illusion. We know it's a state of separation, and that's the root of suffering. And let's focus on how to let go instead of being so concerned about the trauma or why it happened, because, as you said, and the past doesn't exist. So let's address what's in the present and commit to letting go. So thank you. Is anything else you want to share before we say our goodbyes?
Man, I could start up again, and I don't want to do that because you just wrapped it up beautifully.
Okay, great. So we're gonna have probably part 2, part 3 here, because I know you deepening your own practice, you deepening your connection, and it will be a lot of more material for us to share here, having your cup of coffee.
I guess that was what I would say, is if people have questions, then maybe they ask their questions and you find some theme, and then we can come on and we can say, this was a big question.
I love it.
And we can address that.
I ask the listeners right now to send the questions, because I'm sure this conversation is bringing a lot of questions. You might have scenarios in your head where, well, but what if I'm in an environment that presents this or that? And so bring your questions and we'll address this in our next podcast. So right now, my brother.
Beautiful.
I love you.
Love
thank
you
you
too.
so much.
Yeah, thank you.